Hey everyone, I'm going to get going here. My name is Andrew Bourget, Head of Customer Operations for ShipAngel. I thank you all for joining us today on this, what I think is it's our sixth live demo, which I'm pretty excited about. I do a lot of these demos to a lot of customers, but I think I find the ability to practice this and show some new faces that we wouldn't normally have had the chance to talk to pretty exciting. So I appreciate you guys joining. I do ask that if you guys have questions, please ask questions on the right. We really want to hear from you guys. We want to know what your thoughts are. We want to know the things you want to see more of. We want to know the questions you have. Please do not be a stranger, even if you just want to say hello or say how good of a job hopefully that I'm doing. Please jump in and mention something in the comments. So let's get rolling here. So ShipAngel as a whole, we are an AI native operating system for BCO shippers. Our flagship product is what we call rate management solution. What we do is we bring your rates, your contracts with your international shipping vendors, whether it be air, ocean, or trucking, and we bring it into a single source of truth platform for you to manage your rates, understand your rates, and also share the rates with your entire team. And the key to this is our AI process, which I'll talk on a little bit in the presentation, but I wanted to start here because this is really where ShipAngel shows off our biggest and best assets, which is our AI processing power. And so today we process thousands of ocean shipping, air freight, and trucking contracts in quotes every single month. And we do so utilizing an artificial intelligence machine learning system that we have built on our own on a secure AWS server. What it means for you is nothing has to be templatized. You do not need to conform to a single format. You do not need to have your vendors conform to any single format. All you need to do is negotiate rates and ensure those rates get into the ShipAngel platform by uploading them in the platform, sending them via email to ShipAngel, or ensuring that the rates get sent by your vendors to ShipAngel. What we do is then we process all of those Excel documents, the email attachments, the emails, the PDFs, any kind of third-party data, portal sites, EDI, API information, however you receive it. We process it and we bring it into a single source of truth in a format that you understand, that you know, and your business knows. I don't always know exactly how to total an all-in cost on a CMA CGM rate sheet in comparison to a DSV rate sheet. But at the end of the day, what matters for you is that you simply get the rates, get them to us, we'll process them, and we'll get them inside the ShipAngel platform for you to understand what are my rates on my different lanes and how do they compare to some market data that we bring in. Additionally, what's super useful here is the ShipAngel platform is mobile ready. And so we don't have necessarily a mobile application, but what we allow you to do is go into your Google Chrome or your Apple Safari and simply go to app.shipangel.com. You can log in, and the same system that you're utilizing for your rates on a web browser on your computer is also available to you directly from your phone. And what is super useful, and I'll get into this a little bit during the demo, but we also bring in other AI powered tools into the scenario. We have what we call our AI, our ShipAngel AI Copilot. And from here, it's super useful as you can start to ask questions to your data. I always use the phrase when talking to customers, no one just scrolls through their rates for fun. Everyone has a reason for wanting to look at their rates. Maybe they're answering questions. They need to start do some budget planning, or they need to understand, hey, is this provider actually giving me good rates or not? All of that is stuff you can go in the platform and you can search and filter and slice and dice. But what's super useful with our AI Copilot here is you can ask simple questions like, what is my MSC rate for a 40 high cube from Shanghai to New York City in, let's just say, May 23rd? A very specific question. What the system is going to do is utilize the same AI engine that we've built for our rate processing. Look at that. I didn't have a MSC rate at that time. And so that's good to know. And that's maybe a relevant question that you may need to get answered at any particular time. What's useful here is the AI Copilot is available to you on the mobile device as well as the application. And the idea here is you can get answers to questions very quickly, and you can do so between meetings, between customer calls, or in a meeting. Pop it open on your phone, type in a few bits of information, and hopefully an answer can be popped out for you to enlighten the rest of your team or answer the questions that you need. Once inside the ShipAngel platform, what we do is a really good job of presenting all of your international shipping rates, ocean, air, and trucking for you in one location. And so I can switch between air and trucking, and I can do searches. I can understand what are my rates on these lanes. Additionally, what we do a really good job of as well is we bring in the ability for you to segment your data. And so we might have a whole host of individuals brought into the system, but we also can give them visibility to things as well as exclude visibility to things. And so what that means practically is I could have a sales team, and this is very common with our customers who have to present rates to a wider group, is that they're now able to segment what their sales team can see. And so they can only see lowest rates. They cannot export. They can't download. They don't need to see the third-party benchmark data. They don't need to know surcharges, CO2 emissions. They're limited to the information that helps them, and they're limited to not see the information they don't want or we don't want them to see. And so this is really useful, especially for enterprise customers who have operations across every continent. And some of the biggest Fortune 100 companies are able to segment their information, protect their data, and ensure that their teams are empowered to understand what's going on and understand what their rates are. I'm going to start in our air freight section today to give you an idea of kind of what this looks like when you guys are searching. And so I'm going to do what's called a blank search, just leaving the from or to blank. What's super useful here is I can always put in an origin. And so I could put in an origin warehouse. And so I might put in, a location called Mansfield, Mass, where I happen to live. Shout out to Go Hornets. But additionally, I could also put in airports. And so I might want to search for something via Boston, and I can use the airport code for Boston, or I could even put in airport codes for other places or other countries. And the from and to helps me narrow my search results down. And so as you can see, when I did this blank search, we had 12 different results. And I can scroll through and I can look at all my different rates, or I can start to narrow my search results down. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to search for this rate card down here from SGN. So I'm going to search from SGN to LAX. When I do this search, it's going to narrow down to 2 results. And so I have rates with DSV and I have rates with SEVA. Inside the rate card, you're going to get a bunch of different information presented to you so you understand kind of what's going on with your rates. On a base level, I'm going to understand when is the rate valid from and to, where's it going from and to, which we search for as well. I'm also going to understand what the departure days are. This is very specific to air freight in that we need to know when the freight is leaving, potentially so that I can hit those departures. I also want to know the transit time. And so this is, basically a 2-day transit, and that's useful to know. We also might have, different service levels. It could be deferred, it could be priority. And some of this will also be able to narrow down the transit time ability. We'll also understand commodity, which is useful if you have a very large company with a lot of lanes and a lot of different rates. You want to be able to understand what's the commodity this is specifically quoted for. On the bottom of the rate card, you're going to get the weight breaks. And so air freight's broken out into different weight breaks. And I'm going to be able to understand very quickly 45 kilos, what's my cost? $7.81 per kilo. As the weight breaks go up, which is generally true in air freight, the prices generally go down. And so as you see in some of the higher weight breaks, I'm able to see some lower pricing and understand, hey, if I'm going to do something that's at or above 1,000 kilos, it's going to cost me $5.06 per kilo. And we get that information from what we call our surcharge tab. And inside the surcharge tab, we have different kind of sections of the freight broken out. We have air freight, origin and destination. In this scenario, it's an airport to airport move. So the air freight is the only section that is involved. If I was looking at rates from a door location, we would then see origin, pickup, handling, customs, et cetera, would also be listed out for us to understand what's my rate door to port, door, port door, all the different combinations of this shipment. Inside the air freight shipment section, we're able to understand those charges that represent that total air freight section. The air freight isn't always the sole charge when it comes to air freight. And so there might be a freight amount, but there also might be a fuel and a security fee as charged by the airline and as quoted by your provider. And so what we're doing is we're totaling this information and we're presenting it vertically in the weight breaks. And so what it is super useful for you to come in if you're a procurement manager and you want to go down into the details. They always say the devil is in the details here. I could look at this SSC charge, which I assume is a securities charge, and understand, hey, it's 10 cents and my fuel is 82 cents. Does this something that I need to fix? Is it above, below where my rates are currently? Ultimately, you have the ability to manage your rates from a high level. What's my all-in cost per weight break? Or I can go down to the micro level and understand what are my individual surcharges. What's super useful here additionally is we give you access to third-party data. And what we're able to do is give you this chart that gives you weight breaks. It gives you the ability to switch between USD to different currencies. So if I want to look at something in euro or Japanese, yen, et cetera, you're able to change this out, but you're also able to look at the last 6 months. Ultimately, what we want to give you is the ability to empower you to be able to understand how do my rates compare to the market rates. And so we bring this in from a third party to give you very good understanding of my rate on a particular lane. What is my all-in cost? In this scenario, we're looking at the less than 45 kilo weight break to say, hey, I'm 4% lower than the market average. My $6.89 is actually lower than where the market is at $7.19. And so you very quickly can compare vendor to vendor. I can compare DSV to SIVA and understand, hey, they're $10, they're $7, but I can also start to be able to say, hey, my providers in comparison to where the market rate is, where do they stand? Are they above or are they below that market? Which is super valuable in today's price-sensitive world with all these tariffs and all these supply chain disruptions. Knowing that you have the best rate in comparison to your vendors, as well as a good rate in comparison to the market rate, is super valuable to ensure you're making the best decision that is a data-driven decision. It isn't just a finger in the air. What is my rate? How does it compare? This is very much giving you access to competitive rates, competitive analysis to make better decisions. This also lives in our ocean section. And so in our ocean section, I'm going to pull up a door rate just to give you an understanding here of what this looks like. But what this is going to do is give you access to all of your rates, all of your lanes, regardless of the modality before and after that traditional port-to-port move. And so this is a door move from Georgia to a door location in China. If I were to pronunciate this, someone on the call might laugh at me. But at the end of the day here, I, again, can understand what's my total cost on a move from an entire supply chain perspective, going from origin to destination. What are all the charges that make up this cost? And so I have my base rate, I have my bunker charge, securities, I have an origin dray cost. Excuse me, I scrolled a little too quick here. I have an origin dray cost and I have a destination dray cost. Ultimately, it gives me my total all-in value. And so what it means for your organization is no longer do people have to pull out their calculators, their TI-89s and start going through the rate cards and saying, okay, it's 190 plus, 28, et cetera, et cetera. They simply need to log in, search the origin and destination they're looking to ship or quote cargo on. And then from there, they can understand what are my total costs? What is the detention and demurrage? What are the schedules that I potentially need to hit? There's a lot of information here to help validate your decision-making process with information that is super valuable. And so this is something we bring in for ocean that we don't bring in for air. And it's the idea of transit times and schedule. And so what this ensures is that I might have a KPI here of 48 days from MSC, from Georgia to China door. Additionally, we bring in third-party data to tell you on the Savannah to Shanghai leg, what's the transit time here. And so what you're able to do is maybe this is a lead time, or maybe this is a total transit in combination with the door moves. I can then say or validate whether this schedule information that we bring in based on the services on MSC and the different vessels we could sail and the different ETDs, ETAs, is this transit time competitive or not? So this is a super useful feature to give you an understanding of what does my rate mean? Is it fast or is it slow? Is it competitive? Is it not competitive? I'm going to do a different search up here to show you a little bit more results on some different lanes. So I'm going to put in a Shanghai search to US LAX. And what's useful here is regardless of whether you use NVOs or direct ocean carriers, we give you the ability to still benchmark your data as closely as possible. And so this is a DSV result from Shanghai to LAX. Again, I get my total all in at the bottom, but what's super useful here is I now start to see a transit time as well as data brought in from the market. And so if anyone who's on this demo that is intimately involved with ocean freight will know DSV doesn't have any vessels yet. You never know. DSV is growing like crazy, but they don't have vessels. They don't have scheduled data. They're buying space on a CMA or a Maersk, and then they resell that space to the market. And so when I click into this schedule data, what you're getting is a snapshot of the shipping market on this lane. What are the possible transit times that I could ship on if I were to ship with a provider on this lane? Now, I don't know what DSV necessarily is providing as the underlying carrier on this move, but what you're able to do is see some options, see some carriers, some services, some vessels, and ETD, ETAs. Ultimately, I can also see a transit time. And so when I come out front here, I can now validate my NVO transit times against the market. And so if DSV says, hey, this is a 13-day transit, I might be able to raise my hand and say, are you sure? Because the market looks closer to 17 days on average. And so regardless of whether you're working with a carrier or an NVO, you can still benchmark and validate your transit times associated. Additionally, you'll note this rate is a short-term rate. And so we're looking at an August 1st to the end of August rate. It's a 30-day validity period. When I look at this chart here, I now am able to validate this ocean rate against the market to understand this DSV rate as of August 27th is 64% higher than the market average. My rate is significantly higher today than where the market rate is, from $2,254 down to the market, which is $1,371, which if you've been around ocean shipping, specifically on the Trans-Pacific trade, we can say $1,400 is extremely low value on the FAK spot market. What we're doing here, the software in our Ship Angel platform is looking at your rate and saying, hey, this is a short-term rate. We need to compare short-term versus short-term. Inside this rate card, I could always toggle and understand what's the long-term market or the short-term market. But what we do as an automatic feature here is we bring in the exact apples to apples comparison that you should be looking at. And so if I was looking at a long-term rate, the system would check the validity of your rate and understand, hey, this is a long-term rate. We need to compare this against the long-term market and present that information to you. Additionally, which is super valuable, the third-party data set that we're working with is constantly changing. There's new rates coming in. There's new updated market averages being published. And what that does is give us the ability to start to see into the fog of the future a little bit. And so you can see here on my cursor, I'm looking at the market average today on August 27th is 1371. As I move my cursor to the 28th, you see that number go up. And as I move closer to the end of the month, we can see at August 31st, the market rate is 1406 on this lane. And then, boom, September 1st, this number drops pretty significantly, actually. What we're able to do is give you a little bit of visibility into the future so that you potentially understand what are the rates going to be in the future. And this is super relevant for the spot market because what it allows you to do is sort of understand, okay, it's the 27th of August. I'm probably getting some rate quotes for next month that are going to come in today. And I can start to validate those rate quotes very quickly to say, yes, this rate is competitive, or no, the rate you're giving me is very uncompetitive. In this scenario, I would hope to be somewhere around that market average. You should never shoot to be $3, $6, $100, thousands of dollars below the market average. You simply want to be amongst that market average within a couple percentage points, and you know you're getting a competitive rate. What I can tell you right now is if my rate from September 3rd, which we can see here is listed at $2,030, which happens to be a decrease from the end of August into September for my DSV rate, but in comparison to the market, it is significantly uncompetitive. And so what I should do as a procurement manager or a freight manager, whoever's managing and whoever's the custodian of your rates, needs to push back on DSV and go, hey guys, I need a more competitive rate. You're significantly higher than the market. I honestly need you to come down almost $1,000. From there, what you're able to do is start to get hopefully some better rates. And we've seen a lot of our customers in the last 3 to 6 months where the spot market has kind of been a little bit crazy. We've seen our customers start to be able to negotiate some better rates and ensure that their rates are more competitive against the market utilizing this benchmark data available in the ShipAngel platform. Additionally, outside of the simple search functionality, we also give you access to all of those original rate sheets. And so this is our document section. This is where all of your rates are going to flow into the platform. And so every member of your team will be working in here, forwarding rates, uploading rates to the platform. And what's super useful here is we might be looking at a DSV September FAK upload. This is those rates that I was showing you for September 1st, where we had a slight decrease. And what's super nice here is I can always go back and look at the original file that was quoted. And so when I click download original file, what we're going to give you the ability to do is go back and look at that raw source material. And so what you can always do is track what are the original rates that were being quoted and what are those rates look like. And so when I open this file, and it's not an actual DSV rate file, it's a file here, but I've just put the DSV picture on because I don't want to use any customer facing information to show you that. But at the end of the day, I can always compare what's the original rate sheet versus the rate that was uploaded. And what that allows you to do is always have that single source of truth for all of your rates. Your raw rate sheets amongst your ShipAngel rates are always included in the platform. And then another feature that we are super excited about that customers generally gravitate towards is the ability to actually click into that amendment. And so this is my September 1st amendment. It's already active, or at least it'll become active when September 1st rolls around. But when this rate comes in, or after I've approved this rate, you can start to understand how has my rate changed versus my active rates. And so right now we're comparing against active DSV rates. And what we can start to see is how are these rates changing? And so this scenario, the base rates came down in this lane from Shanghai to New York City by $336 or 13% decrease. If we had any changes in the container surcharges, we'd see differences here. If we had a difference in the per BL surcharges, we would see a difference here. Ultimately, at the end of the day, the net of the scenario, what is the total all-in price and how has it changed? And so we can see here we had about a 9 to 10, 11% change on these lanes to give you an idea of how things are changing. In this scenario, it's a positive change. But as we saw when we were looking at the rate sheet search, the search section of the rate sheet earlier, this rate, even though it's come down, is still not competitive in terms of what the market is seeing. So I've shown you guys our rate search section. I've shown you our document section where all of your original rates will flow into and be housed and stored. We also have that ability to look at things, what we call our amendment guard. And so it's stored in the under review section of your documents. And from here, you get a similar view as I was just showing you on that DSV rate card. This is an unapproved amendment. And so CMA has sent me some Q4 rates. It looks like, they came in, a month early, which is nice, something we probably don't see in reality. But what you can get the ability to do is understand how are these rates changing. And so these CMA CGM rates are going down, it looks like somewhere in single digit percentages. And where it's going down is in my total container surcharges. If I wanted to start to dig into that, what I can do at the top here is I can click into the surcharge section. And now I can look at the line item surcharges and understand what's changing. And so we see a bunker charge went down and we see a security charge went down. Wonderful. And so what you can really do is drill down into your contract amendments or your quotes and understand what's changing, what's new, what's different, how are my rates looking, et cetera. And so this is a feature we call amendment card, and it's housed inside your document section to give you the ability ultimately to decide I approve or reject this amendment, to then give it visibility to your team internally or not. The last section that I'm going to touch on today is our My Routes section. I like to call this sort of your greatest hits. I've asked the team to rename this to greatest hits, and they've told me no, but hopefully someday I'll win in that conversation. But what's super important here is I can take and add lanes here to understand what my rates are. And what's useful is every user can do this for themselves. And as they add rates, these rates are always saved and are always visible every time you log in the platform. And so I've done the math here on what it takes, and it's about 7 seconds to log in and to click on My Routes to be able to then understand, hey, what are my rates on this lane and how do they compare to the market? And so I'm just going to pull up a couple more lanes here to show you. Here we go. And so when I add these lanes, they're always going to live inside this environment. And what's useful is I very, very quickly get an understanding of Shanghai to Savannah. My lowest rate is this $2,082 rate with CMA. And I can click on the rate and I can get more details. I can understand what's my rate on this lane, what are my surcharges, what's my D&D, if I have any, what are the schedules that I might ship on, et cetera, et cetera. All of this is very viewable, very easily viewed in a single apples to apples format. We're always going to give you the initial view as cheapest versus fastest versus lowest CO2. And so I could compare what's my fastest transit time, what's my cheapest rate, in addition to what's that market rate on that lane. And so I can tell you very quickly, my CMA CGM rate is a good rate. It's well below the market average from Shanghai to Savannah, and I should probably ship on it if I choose to ship on it. Similarly, that Shanghai to New York City, it's 2082. It's competitive, and versus the market, it's a good rate. One thing that is also useful here is I can also look at other lanes that are a part of this picture, but I can now start to look at this by vendor. And so I can put in this show by to by vendor, and now I'm apples to apples. How does CMA compare? How does Hapag compare? How does MSC compare on one particular lane that is important to me? And every time I log in, I can now have access to the My Routes section. It's always saved here. Additionally, which is super useful, and we have customers who are utilizing this feature, is I can now export this information. I can bring this information into an Excel document that I download to my computer, and I can start to do some statistical analysis to say, my lowest rate on any given lane is 1% above the market, 20% above the market. Maybe you can utilize this to help you in your budgetary processes, ultimately to be able to understand your rates in more detail, how they compare against each other, as well as against the market. I went through a lot of this, the major parts of this platform, which are our search function, our AI upload process, which I showed you at the very beginning, the idea of our AI co-pilot, as well as the upload process. If you guys have any questions, please reach out to us. You can reach out to myself, Andrew at shipangel.com. You can also reach out to any of our team members, or you can jump on our website and fill out a form to be reached out to as well. We want to talk to you. We want to help you. We want to help you understand what the future of rate management could look like for you and your organization. And we'd love to show this to you in more detail. Ultimately, our best next steps with customers is to then take all of your rate data and show it to you in the platform. We believe in a show, not tell environment. And so being able to do that for you would be super interesting for us. And we look forward to that opportunity. If you guys have any questions, again, please reach out. I'm really thankful you guys joined today. And I look forward to continuing the conversation and bringing you along in hopefully a very long ShipAngel journey for you in the future. Don't be a stranger. Talk soon, everyone.